The presidential election is now closing in. Donald Trump flips Minnesota and New Mexico in my latest 2024 election forecast. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis. And today we're going to be talking about my new map and why Donald Trump is actually headed for a modest landslide victory in the Electoral College. Hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. And so when you look at this map, you may say, well, this is a really big victory for President Trump. The last two elections have been very, very competitive, where Donald Trump has narrowly won the Rust Belt back in 2016 and then lost the Rust Belt, including losing Georgia and Arizona in a very, very tight presidential election where Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona decided the margin by about 40-something thousand votes in those three states combined. So it was still very, very close here and in 2016. But now when you look at this map, Donald Trump is absolutely crushing Kamala Harris this time around. And you may say, well, this is kind of interesting. Why is Donald Trump winning so big here? Well, it's a very, very simple thing to look at. Number one, my demographic modeling for the election shows Donald Trump winning 323 electoral college votes based on the most accurate pollster crosstabs, which is only one state off from my official forecast. This part of the model is incorporated into it, and it kind of does help guide the model. The final map from the model produces this. This is kind of what the demographic model from the latest, most accurate crosstabs from the most accurate pollsters are looking at. And just by the way, looking at the popular vote here, we see it's about a Trump +4 victory based on the accurate crosstabs. We see states like New Hampshire competitive. Virginia is on the verge of flipping in this forecast, but we see Donald Trump is going out there and winning the election with pretty great ease as of right now. The second thing is that in RCP, Donald Trump is actually catching up in RCP. He's only trailing by 0.2%. And we see here that just 4 years ago, Biden was actually polling ahead by 8.1% in the aggregate. So right now, Kamala Harris is polling 8 points worse than Joe Biden was. And if you applied an 8-point miss to the 4.5-point win that Joe Biden had. So right now, Kamala Harris is polling about 8 points worse. If you were to apply that to the last matchup, you would get a Trump plus 3.4 percentage point popular vote win. Looking at Clinton, you see here that Clinton was polling 5 points better than Harris is right now. She lost, or actually Clinton won the popular vote by 2.1. If you apply the around roughly give or take, looking at the polling here, 5.3 percentage points. If you apply that to that popular vote margin of Clinton plus 2.1, you get Trump plus 3.2. So both aggregates, when you cross-examine it, are showing a Trump plus 3 national environment. Right now in Polymarket, Donald Trump's odds are extremely high as of right now, with Michigan being the only one that's right below the lean category right now. But Donald Trump is essentially carrying all these swing states with pretty great ease, with states like even Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire and Maine. All of Donald Trump's odds are now in the double digits range as of right now, including New Mexico, which is very, very fascinating. States like Texas, Florida, the odds for Democrats basically have completely tanked in those battleground states. Georgia and North Carolina are now up to 70% odds, leaving Donald Trump with the floor, according to the betting odds, of 297, which is around the absolute floor that I've given him. I'm actually ready to probably add Michigan into his absolute floor now, where he is getting 312 automatically, because if he's winning the popular vote by 3 points, none of the battleground states are going to be close, unlike what the expert pundits will tell you. Because if you look at 2020, look at how the states voted relative to the nation. Wisconsin voted 4 points to right of the nation. Michigan, 2 points to right of the nation. Pennsylvania, 3. Georgia, 4 points to right of the nation. Arizona, 4 points. Nevada, 2 points. And with African American and Hispanic trends moving to Donald Trump, you may see slight trends to the left in Georgia, Arizona. You may see some very, very slight trends in those directions. And North Carolina hasn't really been trending anywhere. So if Donald Trump's winning the popular vote by 2 to 3, alongside the Rust Belt trending Republican, all of the battleground states do vote to the right of the nation. And so if that is the case, if Trump's winning the popular vote by 2 or 3, none of them are really going to be that competitive when we actually see the results on election day, including Iowa and Ohio, which have been trending more Republican as well, voting 13 points to the right of the nation. If Trump's winning the election by 2 to 3 points in the popular vote, you're going to see 16, 17 point victories in those states, which is around what I have. Same thing for Florida. A Trump plus 3 popular vote win is something akin to a Trump plus 12, 13 win in Florida. And that's if the state doesn't really trend any more Republican, which I have a feeling it may trend more Republican. We may actually see me underestimating Trump in a place like Florida and even Texas, which I actually think Texas is going to trend Republican because of the Hispanic shift that we're going to see for Donald Trump in the state of Texas, where he probably will gain a lot of Hispanic voters. And right now, I actually have him winning the state of Texas by 14 and Florida by 12. He's winning Georgia by 6, North Carolina by 8. Arizona by 6, Nevada by 5, Wisconsin by 7, Pennsylvania by 6, and Michigan by 5. Those are kind of the victories that I have. And Iowa's about a 17-point win for Trump, which would explain why Minnesota is a battleground state, unlike what most political pundits will tell you. And not only that, when we actually look at the Gallup article that I referenced quite a bit, we see here that these Gallup polling metrics, which have been proven pretty successful in predicting the presidential winner every single year, we see just a landslide environment for Republicans. I mean, U.S. satisfaction is down. Economic confidence is at a pretty big low right now. Party better able to keep America prosperous is at a 50-point lead right now, or 50 to 44-point lead. Presidential job approving is pretty much at an all-time low. Party being able to keep America safe from international threats is a 14-point lead for Republicans. Preference for government activity, 55% do less. This is the first time in a while where a majority of the country wants the government to do less. So that is very interesting. And congressional job approval, 20%. Looking at this, we see U.S. satisfaction, all-time low. Party identification, this is a big one, guys, because the Gallup party identification for Q3, when they poll this, it's actually always pretty close to what the final popular vote ends up being, especially the last 3 cycles, or actually not even the 4 cycles. It's actually been relatively close when you look at them. The 2000s, these metrics were kind of skewed because you did have some third-party turnout that did kind of affect these numbers. Same thing in the 90s, you kind of had some third-party turnout that was also kind of affecting the margins in some of these, party gallops. But you get the point. I mean, essentially, relatively speaking, you saw a delta from 1996 to 2000. So that delta should have told you that Republicans were improving regardless, and that was going to be an advantage. You see the same thing, Republicans delta again. That should have told you, okay, Bush is going to overperform Obama. You saw a delta for Democrats, then you see, okay, well, that makes sense. Democrats are going to perform better. A delta towards Republicans, Romney's going to do better. And then you see here a delta towards Republican. You're going to say, okay, Clinton's going to do worse than Obama. You saw a delta for Democrats here. You're like, okay, Joe Biden's going to do better than Clinton. And then now you see a delta towards Republicans. You're going to say, okay, well, Trump's going to obviously win the election, because this is the first time where we see a delta this hard where the parties actually flip. And this is the first time that a majority of voters, or a decent plurality of voters, lead Democrats in the plurality of where they're at. And now Republicans lead on the question of the most important issues, economy and immigration. They're ahead right now. And this has been a pretty very, very accurate indicator in predicting the election, by the way. And so it's very interesting that this Gallup thing is showing a landslide environment. I mean, economic confidence, minus 37 was the last time it was somewhat similar to this minus 28. And in 1992, George H.W. Bush lost in an electoral college landslide. As you can see right here in 1992, he lost by a pretty good amount, and even had some high third-party turnout, which third-party sentiment is still high, despite the fact that Kennedy is no longer in the race, because Kennedy endorsed Donald Trump, which is going to help him in some of these battleground states, and did actually give him a little bit of a boost in the popular vote, and is helping him flip states like Minnesota and New Mexico, and making New Hampshire a pretty competitive battleground. So that is pretty fascinating when you look at it there. And we see that Donald Trump, look at this. U.S. satisfaction, 22%. The last time it was at this low was 1980, landslide victory for Republican. 1992, landslide victory for Democrat. 13%, 2008, landslide victory for Democrats. So you see in years where the approval rating of the U.S. is below 25, you get pretty big landslide losses for the incumbent party. And on top of that, the incumbent is unpopular. 39% is unpopular. They found Harris's favorability rating at 48, but Gallup just found Trump's approval rating at 50% the other day, which is a 2-point lead, which is similar to my popular vote lead. And job approval and favorability ratings are indicative of where the popular vote's going to end up being. And the biggest sign is the early return. So we see right now, as of ballots that have been returned nationwide, so 24 million ballots have been returned according to L2's data dashboard. We see they are 39% Republican to Democrats 43% Democrat. That's not good enough. That is not good enough for Democrats at all. We see that the electorate is it's pretty white. It's 67% white, only 9% black. I mean, those numbers should be a lot higher in the early/mail-in ballots, by the way. They should be way higher than this. Arizona, let's take a look at a state like Arizona. Republicans are ahead in the early and mail-in votes. There's about almost 749,000 votes returned. I mean, this is a disaster for Democrats. The Republicans are ahead in the early and mail-in ballots. This was not what it was last time. Democrats had a huge lead before in this category. Looking at a place like Georgia, you're going to see something even bigger here. Republicans are actually ahead in the early/mail-in ballots in Georgia. This was not the case back in 2020, by the way. We can also go to a place, for example, like Michigan. We can go to Michigan. We'll see Democrats are ahead, but this is nowhere near the lead that they had in the early voting back in 2020. And in Wisconsin, you're going to see an absolute shocker here. I mean, again, they don't register by party, but Democrats in the model data were really close to being ahead, or were ahead. And now Republicans are ahead by 11 points, guys. 11. They're ahead by 11 points in the early/mail-in ballots according to this inference data. So that is absolutely insane. And Pennsylvania, let's look at a state like Pennsylvania, guys. Again, Pennsylvania, Scott Presler's been doing amazing work there. Democrats 61 to Republicans 29. This is still an improvement for Republicans in a state like Pennsylvania. So overall, you see the delta towards Republicans. Even in a place like New Mexico, the data is also looking way better for Republicans than it did 4 years ago. In every single state, it's looking better. Even in Nevada, look at Nevada. The in-person ballots, 47-30 in Nevada. Absolutely insane, guys. Absolutely insane. More than likely, maybe this is the combined votes. But again, a lead of that little for Democrats isn't really good. And if we go to a place, let's actually even check out this. Let's go to a place like Maine. If we go to Maine, we'll see that Democrats are not ahead by the amount that they should be. And in Florida, they're just crushing it in the state of Florida. And they actually haven't even updated this. They're a little bit behind. If we actually go to Voter Hub, which updates a little bit more frequently, Republicans are ahead by almost 7 points. They're ahead by over 7 in this modeling. They're ahead by 7 points in the early/mail-in votes combined. Miami-Dade, for Democrats, they're about tied right now in the early vote/mail-ins combined, which is absolutely insane. Duval, which is very fascinating and has a pretty interesting relationship with Georgia, the county has always voted to the left of the state of Georgia. So like, for example, we see here, Biden plus 3.8, and then Georgia ended up being a Democrat state. We saw Republicans won Duval, and then Georgia ended up voting to the right of Duval. The same thing kind of happened here. The state of Georgia has always voted to the right of Duval County. We even see here 2012, it always voted to the right And so if that's going to hold up, again, if that weird relationship with Duval is like holding up, you even see even here in 2004 when Duval was like a 16-point win in 2004 for George W. Bush, Georgia still voted to the right of Duval. I mean, it's been voting to the right of Duval for a pretty long time. The last time it didn't do that was in 2000, but it still voted similarly to it. You see Duval, Dole won it by about 6, and then you had Georgia right here, a 2-point victory. So it's always been voting. And then again, 2000, you had some high third-party turnout, so that probably could have skewed things. Same thing, 1996. But again, looking at Duval, 12-point win, and we see right here, it did vote to the left of it. But going to 1988, we can see here, oh, I guess they don't have the county maps for 88 or any elections before that. But again, we see a relationship where ever since after 2000, Duval has always voted to the left of Georgia. And so right now, if Duval is coming in as a 2-point lead in the early in-person / mail-in ballots already before election day, and Duval's like a 6-7 point win for Trump, Georgia may not even be a 7-6 point win. It may be higher. I may be underestimating Donald Trump in the state of Georgia, as crazy as that actually sounds. And so Republicans are headed for a really good day with Donald Trump at the top of the ticket. I'll be doing my final House forecast and my final Senate forecast very soon, as the variables for those races really can't change all that much. And there's a possibility that I may be doing my final presidential prediction very, very soon. I may be doing it even before November 1st, because when you look at my demographic model, the only thing I got to really wait for is Rich's final poll, the big data poll. That is the last one I got to wait for before that finalizes. The popular vote in my aggregate is probably going to stabilize around a 3-point win for Trump. So that's not going to change either. So really the only thing that can change is the polling aggregates and my own predictions for some other states. And so if the polls don't really change in the other battlegrounds, the model's really not going to change all that much from now to November 5th, which we're only 11 days away, by the way. Only 11 days left until the election, which is absolutely insane. But guys, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this. We will be doing an interview later with Willie Montague, who's running in the district in Orlando, and it's against Maxwell Frost, who is a good friend of Kamala Harris, so we'll be kind of interviewing him. And on top of that, we're possibly going to be doing a stream with the Press Ginger later today, so make sure to go ahead and check that out. But go to betonline.com, where you can actually see the latest betting odds for the presidential election, as well as the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. So I hope to see you guys very, very soon.